Welcome to Eurocine Expo 2025 in a very hot Munich. I'm sitting here with Ben Dynice from Aputure. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So you're head of is it product UX and UI, user experience, user interface. One of the most important bits of the whole puzzle that is lighting these days. I'd like to dial it back though and find out what, as a kid, what got you into wanting to be in something to do with the movie world? There must have been a little spark somewhere that set you down this path.
Yeah, I always had a knack for actually performing in front of camera. I went to Performing Arts High School, and there I really got into directing.
Right.
And ended up going to Chapman University for film school. And at film school, it was always about finding your passion and telling your story. And I played in the entertainment world for a long time, working on projects of my own, and eventually fell into lighting, very strangely. So, as a kid, I don't know. I always like to take things apart and figure out how things work.
Right, yeah.
So,
from the technical side.
From the technical side. Yeah. I was always that, and I think that's why I gravitated towards technology side of things.
Yeah.
Like even as a kid in high school, I was the one who would build a computer all from scratch just because you could. As opposed to buying the all-in-one thing. So
and that, I guess, lighting it's one thing that now with the revolutions in lighting kind of thing, science really has come to the fore, hasn't it? It's not just a case of putting a bigger, hotter bulb on something. It really is technical from the get-go, and the key to making it successful is making it easy for people to use, isn't it? Which must be that your nirvana, basically, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, as the director of product UX UI, I'm always after what's the best user experience, and I know that sounds obvious, but how is a user going to achieve whatever their goal is? Just dimming the light, changing the settings, how are they going to achieve that simply and intuitively?
Yeah. And
it does take a lot of iteration, it takes a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So, obviously all your R&D is all based off the back of users' comments and wish lists and everything, but there must be, gaffers, cinematographers, lighting is a very subjective thing, isn't it? I mean, it might be heresy to say that, but it's often people in the past have got to the same point through a very different route using different kit kind of thing. So is it a case of fitting stuff to, you can work umpteen different ways with this piece of kit, but you can achieve the same result? So actually, from a user experience, I can't think of a harder thing to work out in some ways.
Well, where I came from, once I fell into the lighting world, I started just as a lamp op, and then moved into did some gaffing in reality TV, and eventually really found my groove as a lighting programmer.
Right.
So I did that for 18 years. I've been in Local 728, the Hollywood Lighting Union, for 18 years. And I got into lighting programming because I was always the one to figure out the chain of how things were not working. So then I could figure out how to make them work, right?
Yeah.
So it was always like, this light's not working. Okay. Is it something in the console? Does it have power? Does it have data? Is it patched right? Does it like all of those things you have to instantly think through to solve? So before coming to Aputure, I was the customer.
Yeah.
Because I was on set, right?
Yeah.
I trained on the Hog 4 platform, and I've done movies and commercials and TV shows for all sorts of high-end stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that side of the user experience, I really learned through trial and error of all the stuff that was out there, and said, why is it acting like this?
Yeah.
It shouldn't act like this.
Yeah.
But because I was what you call in the hot seat, which is the guy pushing the buttons when the big movie star is on set.
The buck stopped with you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, this needs to be easier. Let's iterate this and make it easier. And what's interesting is when I was sitting at the lighting console, I really gravitated towards that at first because of all the free time you had, right? So
Yes.
so you were paid to do. I mean, you obviously had to know what you're doing, but you were working every, for 2 minutes every 15 minutes.
Yes.
And the rest of the time, what are you doing? Well, at first I was writing,
Right. Yeah.
So from the film school side, I was like, well, this is great because I could still work on my writing,
Yes.
and I could still keep progressing and still solve these problems on set. And then slowly that transitioned to working on products. The first thing that I did is I said I needed this bracket to work for my server for my lighting console. So I researched, sheet metal and powder coating, all this stuff, and just sit there and just try to learn. And I made this simple little bracket, sold a few, that type of thing. Then I ended up saying, I want this DMX tester to exist in the world. How do I design that? What's the user interface, right?
Yeah.
And I ended up buying an Arduino kit and writing the code, figuring out how the buttons would work, how I'd want it all to iterate together, and then got into die casting and figured out how to die cast. So I started just as a hobby while sitting at the lighting console, just trying to figure out how to make these products. And I eventually ended up with a company called Quasar Science.
Yeah.
So they were the principals of Quasar Science. They were working on a show called True Blood, where they were figuring out how to do this LED lighting stuff. And I was a fill-in programmer there. And they knew that I was trying to make this DMX tester. They knew I had some knowledge of lighting control. And at the time, they were coming out with a product called the Crossfade Tube, which was really big in the industry at the time. But they really wanted to get into DMX and control stuff. So then they brought me in. And I ended up releasing my DMX tester through them. So I didn't have the capital to actually manufacture this product, but I wanted it to exist in the world, and worked out a deal with them. So that was like the first thing that I designed 100% of it from scratch.
Yeah.
Because figuring out, like I said, the mold and the electronics and the battery, I ended up just doing that with Quasar. Then at Quasar, I just started out as just consulting with them as on their DMX products, and then moved in to be the VP of product development. So I was working with the team in China, and to try and help that same idea. We didn't really call it user experience then. We just said, you've been on set, along with all the other Quasar folks, but you've been on set on the technology side and the DMX side. How do we make these products better?
Yeah.
And I think from there, I would do frequent trips to the factory because we were really unique in that respect. We weren't working with a contract manufacturer. We built our own factory up from scratch. So all the standards that they had to adhere to on the DMX side, we were coming up with, which was a blessing and a curse because on one hand, we were a bunch of knuckleheads on set, just trying to solve problems. And on the other side, we were dealing with a factory who was getting into LED manufacturing. So they had done lighting. They'd done LED lighting for the consumer market, but never anything for the pro market. And I think what was really unique about Quasar is the set production environment is all about solving problems. Everybody comes to set with your skills and your expertise and your background of the problems you've already solved. But they would say, all right, we need to put 2 lights on top of that building, figure it out. And I would figure out how I had to control them, but the rigging crew would figure out how to physically get them up there, then they'd figure out how to power them. But we were always just constantly solving problems. So that translated well to a lot of the business world or the corporate world, where they were too slow to move and too slow to react. But we had 12 pages to shoot in a day on set, right? So there was no time. We had to do it now. How are we going to achieve this? So as a team at Quasar, we were really good at that. Now, we definitely had our shortcomings. All of our engineering was overseas at the time, and we really tried to make it the best we could for our customers. And it was such a crazy time because we were a startup. We didn't really know what we were doing at the time. But we happened upon that lightning in the bottle moment with the tubes, which really, I mean, at that time tubes were everywhere because of us. So I mean, looking back at that time, we were not only were we figuring out manufacturing and figuring out LEDs, we were just figuring out the process and starting a business and working with all types of people. So
it's also hugely influential, you know, like through the industry, isn't it? And I mean, lighting is one of the most competitive areas, and not just because there's, you know, a lot of people in the market, but because it's changing, you know, it's developing at such a pace.
And the customer is so demanding, right? In a good way and in a challenging way. But I've been on set times where some behavior would happen in the light, and the DP would say, "Hey, tomorrow, get rid of those 100 lights and replace them with something else."
Right.
Because of maybe something small. Maybe the plus and minus green shift wasn't enough. It just didn't meet the bill. And just like that, they had to change them all. So the when you get it right, you get it right. But you know, through trial and error, and you have to figure out how to get the customer to solve those problems, right? Because that's really what it's about. It's not about selling a light. It's like, well, does this light solve your problems where other ones didn't?
Does it make your life easier?
Exactly. And a lot of times it's like you would get so far with your engineering that it would have certain quirks and things, and you're like, okay, it solves your problems, but it adds some problems. Is it still the best thing out there? And you know, that's really what you're after.
So you know, Quasar, you know, sounds like, you know, quite amazing and crazy time, but probably But then to Aputure, and where are you now, kind of thing?
Well, Quasar sold to a company called Videndum, and then everything started to change from there. I joined Aputure in 2023 as Director of Product UX UI, and that was really to help to work with Aputure and to work on upping the game into the pro market. Because at the time, you know, Aputure really grew not from selling 1,000 lights to 6 rental houses. They grew from selling 6 lights to 1 million users. So often the problem that you have at companies is what you call product velocity. Are you making enough products to satisfy the market? And Aputure, we're such a large company that we release a lot of products. So it's an exciting time to be able to iterate those changes throughout, and to really bring, like, we have the Storm series that came out, and the big thing that I was brought on board to do was to elevate their app ecosystem. So they had a Bluetooth app called Sidus Link, and they really wanted one app to control all the lights, including DMX and CRMX lights. So I was brought in with my background in lighting programming and in product development with Quasar to really elevate the game there. So we released Sidus Link Pro, which is an app for your iPad that can control all DMX and CRMX lights, including all Aputure lights over Bluetooth as well. And so I went from development on the hardware side and the firmware side to then getting into the app side of development, which is a very different ball game, right? Because what's great about that is you can iterate quickly, because it's essentially the software in it. But at Aputure now, I think with the app and with the ecosystem that we're developing, it's also an exciting time, because things advance so quickly. The thing that's going to stay will be essentially the ecosystem. Right? Because in 3 to 4 years, new lights will come out and replace what's out in the market right now. I think the market is still adjusting that change.
Definitely.
Because the lights that they bought before LED lighting, the lights that they bought 30 years ago were still making money. And now the business model has to change because of that, because the technology is changing so fast.
And coming up with a, you know, like you say, that user interface, that's the bit that if you future-proof that, you're kind of 90% there, aren't you? Because anything you can bring in, you don't have to give them a new way of using something, whatever. It fits in with what, you know, the way they're doing. Even if the app is upgraded, kind of thing, to cope with stuff, they're still, as far as they're concerned, they're still in the same little space that they've been in at that time, and it's just additions and improvements, isn't it? Rather than a revolution. You know, it's
Well, I think that's the hard thing is how do you start from a basis of making it good,
Yeah.
so that you can iterate on that and improve it versus, there's a lot of time just in development. Are you building on a base that's not so solid,
Yeah.
or do you have a solid base that you can then make those improvements
Yeah.
to? Because the same thing with the customers and lighting, the customers in lighting control. They have their way they've been doing it, and you can introduce new ways, but a lot of times
Yeah.
there might be some resistance to that.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, am I really trying to find a new way to do it or just a different way? And at the end of the day, you just have to do, it's the same thing with it when you're solving the problems for the LED lighting customer. Are you solving the problems for the lighting control customer?
Yeah. You make it sound very easy, but actually it's one of the most complex and technical aspects of the whole industry at the moment. I can see, it's the rate of change is phenomenal, but packaging it so it's intuitive to use that's the art, I think, in it. So thanks for spending time to talk to us, Ben.
Of course.
Great to catch up with you, and look forward to what's new from Aputure very soon. And we'll catch you at a trade show again very soon, I'm sure.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.